yeah, yeah. Hey ya ho, hey ya ho, hey ya, oh hey ya ho, hey ho, yeah, hey ya. Hi, I'm Craig Jacobrown, and I am a sculptor. I have been sculpting for maybe 40 some odd years since I was born and raised in Washington, and did various kinds of visual art. Now I am doing Northwest Native style to tell the stories of my indigenous Washington roots. I like interactive artwork. Oh, I have an orca coming out of a sandbox that kids can play on. I have a big crab that you can walk up the one side on a stair and slide down the other pincher. That's in Indianola. I heard about Owen's Playground when a woman told me that I should I should look into this playground that was going to be developed for kids with special needs. And she knew that my family's been touched by special needs, as well as the fact that I do playground equipment for kids. And so I put in a proposal, got involved with the Owens Playground Committee, and we came up with a good idea for a sculpture. Well, the caregiver is, like many of my artworks, a representation of a character in a story. And the story is one that I've known for years and have thought about in so many ways, but this was the time that I was able to sculpt a representation of her for children in a playground. Well, I chose to do the caregiver, who is a potent symbol, a woman who has basically not been able to move. She's rooted to the ground and always is subject to all the children that are brought to the Basket Ogress's cave. She lives in the cave, and she's rooted to the ground in the cave. And she's been rooted there, like there are so many roots. And she helps the children to escape from the Basket Ogress because she's seen so many children not escape. Well, Basket Ogress is an English translation for a lot of different characters from different cultures that are all indigenous to the Northwest. And so we might call her Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Locally, they call her Tsugwa. In this case, I would call this Tsunakwa because it's most clearly a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, a Basket Ogress from the Alert Bay area. And that's where the Kwakwaka'wakw people live. And this story comes from the Kwakwaka'wakw people. Well, this is the Basket Ogress. This is the Tsunakwa. She brought those 6 kids up in her basket to her cave and dumped them on the floor and went off to get firewood. And it was during that time that these kids were able to overcome with the help of the caregiver. So that's Lopkarshish, the caregiver, the rooted woman, the woman who lives with the Basket Ogress, the Tsunakwa, but knows that she's just going to take advantage of the children. Well, as the story goes, the caregiver actually sees these 6 children being dropped on the cave floor. And one of them is a young girl who always talked a little funny because she had a cleft palate. And then the other is a bear. There's a wolf, there's an owl, and then there's these 2 young twins. And she asks them, have you eaten anything that the Basket Ogress, that Tsunakwa gave you? And the children say, well, we ate a few berries. And she says, oh my, don't eat anything else. And she says, have you felt anything? And the wolf says, well, I'm losing power in my feet. It's hard for me to walk. And the bear says, I can't really see quite as well as I used to. And the bobcat, she was going, I can't quite find out. I'm losing some eyesight, but I'm really just craving to eat sugar. And then the owl said, my wing is shriveling up. And anyway, she said, just don't eat anymore. And I'm going to teach you a song that you'll be able to, if you do the song and dance, you might be able to overcome the Tsunakwa, the Basket Ogress. And anyway, at that point, the bobcat was feeling a little strange, and she knew she could get out, and tried to follow the light and got out through this root system, but nobody else could get out. So she decided she'd go get help. And she went running down the path, and she was kind of getting lost. She wasn't sure she was going the right way to get home, but she kept going until she saw an old woman trying to climb over a log. And she took compassion on this old woman. It turned out it was a mouse woman. And the mouse had never had help from a bobcat like that. And the mouse turned and said, wow, you're a nice young lady. I'm going to help you. And the bobcat said, well, I need help. I'm lost, and I have my friends up in this cave, and if there's anything you can do. And the mouse went back to the cave with the bobcat. They chewed through, a whole bunch of mice chewed through the roots, helped all the children to escape. And but that was when the Tsunakwa, the Basket Ogress, was coming back, and they knew they couldn't get away in time. So they began to sing this song that the caregiver had taught them, a song that if you sing, it will lull her into a sleep, and when she falls asleep, that's the only time you might be able to roll her into the fire that she's created. The children were able to overcome. Well, the song and dance at the dedication is called Huya Huye. It's ya, 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 hua. It's a one that we would sing when we're sharing with others and having fun, and it's a celebration. So we taught that song. It's not a fall asleep song like the children were learning. I felt that it was important to make a play-in sculpture as opposed to a play-on sculpture. Many children need space away from other people, need their own private space, need to feel enclosed, and don't necessarily need to, they crave it. They don't necessarily have to be there, but the more regularly one can go and relax in such a place, the saner you become. So I understand that and felt that that place needed more small spaces, especially something that was an homage to the caregiver. If you go in and you talk, the resounding sound inside the caregiver is a good resonating feeling like you're talking to yourself. I hope that everyone who is able to go to Owen's Playground and experience the caregiver walks away having experienced something that will live on this cellular level for them. It is a cellular level that we all have special needs. And so although I am not on the autism spectrum where being really in a small enclosed area is a very comforting thing, I totally understand that sensibility. It doesn't take much for anyone to just realize these kinds of experiences are not only important probably for us to experience just so we know about them and know how we respond and know whether we crave and know whether we need them. But there are people who will need them, who will crave them. And so it's just a way of opening oneself to other people's experiences. This was a mask I carved with Joe Ives, And as I've been saying, I carve a lot with Joe Ives because we've produced one film and we're producing a second one right now. This is in the second film. Excuse me. And this is a wolf. And the wolf tells a story which puts to sleep the mink. Oh, 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 oh. The mink wants to eat a salmon, and the wolf would prefer to share it with him. So the mink is being stingy, and the wolf teaches him a lesson. I think that it's really important. It's really important for us to pass on stories visually, kinesthetically, and from the heart. When one's passing on a story, it's easy for us to choose which stories are going to actually live on and help be a part of a positive future that we're trying to create. So it's kind of like be the change you want to be the story that you want to hear. You know, I think that there are amazing creative models, role models in the world that we can choose to make our future. If we embody them today, they will be a part of the future as well as the past. Okay, so these are the prototype masks, paper masks, that I train young people to make, because in many of the arts residency, we don't have the time or tools to make wooden masks. So I get kids to look at the shapes that they see on wooden masks, photos of wooden masks, and decide how they might make those by crimping and scoring and cutting paper. And then once those are glued up into masks that they can wear, then we use the masks to tell a story in the long run. And so, also dancing. And each one of these have a different degree of what one might call difficulty. This is made up of more like 18 pieces of paper. This one is made up of maybe 10 pieces of paper, all cut into shapes. This one's a wolf. You can see that this wolf has a lot of the same shapes as that wolf, but constructed separately, and this one's more original. This one's constrained by the amount of paper and the shapes one can make with paper. But that's not very many pieces, and it looks a lot like some wooden masks might, out of about 8, 9, 10 pieces of paper. In a residency, I'll begin by playing music and singing and teaching children songs so that they can help. While they are singing, I can dance and demonstrate each of these masks. And so I demonstrate and fit them into a story. And the story is another one that George Taylor used to tell, and I tell still, about a young person who goes to the land of the animals, sees a ceremony, and chooses one of those dances because the animals give her a dance, and she brings that back to her human community. So this dance that story is something that I ask all of the kids to imagine themselves to be involved with, and that they were able to choose one of the animals. They choose one, then they begin making one. We begin the research for how one would go about making any of these characters. And then they get choices in terms of what animal they're going to be, and they make whichever one. All of these have been made by kids. Sometimes they're much simpler looking, but basically the same. I have templates which I come in, and they use those templates to make their own mask. And then we have a song and everyone dances in their masks. That's the culminating event. So some teachers from STEM programs, the science, technology, engineering, math people, have asked me to put in an engineering, well, there's a protocol, I guess, for engineering that one gives the students a time to experiment. So sometimes on day 2, I'll offer them a picture of an eye orb, and then I'll offer them paper, and I'll offer them the tools of knowing how to crimp and score and glue and cut. And they have to spend that whole day figuring out how to make a shape that looks just like the picture that they're looking at. And often they'll come up with something like that. Often they won't. But that's okay. That's how you do the engineering portion. So you can put in both art, culture, music, dance, and engineering into this residency. So, yeah, 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 oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.